Dave, President Biden, who takes office today, will take office by suggesting that we spend 1.9 trillion extra to rescue us from this COVID crisis. This comes on top of the 900 billion they've approved just a couple of months ago, and the 2 trillion they approved in March. Right now, the national debt is up to 21 trillion. This equals everything the United States produces in a year. It's up by about a third over the last 4 years because of this and because of tax cuts. Meanwhile, the Fed is printing money. Is there no end to this? But must we borrow and spend like this? What do you think?
Well, I think we're borrowing and spending like this to try to keep the economy from cratering and to try to battle this pandemic. I mean, I think it's significant that around 400 billion of that money in Biden's proposal is for getting the vaccine distributed. It's for more contact tracing, more testing, all the things we need to be doing to put this pandemic behind us. As far as your worries about the national debt, I mean, interest rates are at a record low. Close to zero on short-term rates. The 10-year Treasury is around 1%. I think the bond markets are certainly telling us you don't need to worry about the debt. The cost of servicing the debt is going to remain relatively low.
Well, this is what worries me. Interest rates are very low now, but we've lived through periods in which they were very high.
Yeah.
You go back 15 years ago, they were like triple what they are today. And we're not going to pay off these Treasury bonds as they mature. We're going to roll them over.
Sure.
Roll them over in 5 years, and interest rates are higher. Then you get a real squeeze on the federal budget. What do you think?
Sure, but you also have a big real squeeze on the federal budget if we fall into a double dip recession. And so I kind of view this Biden spending package, or at least much of it, as as kind of an insurance policy against a renewed economic slump. I mean, we had last March, April, we had a severe, harsh recession, but short-lived. The economy began recovering in May, June. We've added back a fair number of jobs. We're still down about 10 million jobs from where we were pre-pandemic. So it's pretty hard to argue that we don't need to still do something for those people, those businesses who've been affected.
Well, if you look at this bill, it is a Christmas tree.
Yes.
It's Christmas in January.
Right. We can argue about some of the pieces of it.
You will get another $1,400 check in the mail, even though you don't need it. You're working.
I don't need it. You don't need it either.
Yeah. Now, some people.
You haven't lost any income, have you? I mean,
no, I'm doing fine.
Your stock market investments are doing fine.
Yeah, you can make a better argument for some of these other things in here. For instance, additional $400 on unemployment checks for people who are still jobless. Their child care credit goes up to $3,000 temporarily. Some people get $8,000 if you have multiple kids.
Right. There are a couple of ways to look at this. One is the things that'll kick in immediately. I think the spending on vaccine distribution, the aid to state and local governments, the unemployment supplement that you mentioned. I think all of those things will kind of kick in and benefit the economy immediately. Those are in the sort of insurance policy category that I mentioned. If we want to kind of speed up the recovery, not have a long drawn out recovery that we had after 2008, 2009. We need to do some of these things. Some of the other parts of the bill, including the child tax credit, which people wouldn't get, as I understand it, until they file their income taxes a year from now. Those are more, I guess, long-term policy changes, not so much stimulus to battle the pandemic, but there are other things on Biden's policy agenda, and he's thrown them in there. I mean, I happen to think the refundable child tax credit is a good idea. It will do a lot to reduce inequality.
I'm an old guy, and I remember what I used to pay for childcare back when my kids were younger, and I see what people are paying today, and it's much higher.
Mm-hmm.
I look at these families just struggling to keep two of them working. With $10,000, $12,000 in childcare cost. So some help there, I think, could be justified, just as income distribution.
Right, and that's and that's like I said, a long-term policy change. Now, I think as this goes through Congress, a closely divided Senate, I think you'll see some things get chopped off and separated from this package. I would not expect the Senate anyway to pass the whole 1.9 trillion untouched. I suspect some of those things are probably going to have to wait for a later, budget reconciliation process, which the Democrats could pass with a simple majority.
Well, there are things like, 14 days of paid leave. Yes. I can imagine, small businesses getting up and, raising hell about, and of course, he also wants to raise the minimum wage, which we've argued about in the past.
We disagree on the effectiveness of a $15, particularly national minimum wage. I mean, in places like San Francisco or New York, that might be a lot different than in the boot heel of Missouri, where living costs and general wages are much lower.
Well, actually, we do have a West Coast experiment that's gone on for a few years. Mm-hmm. In Seattle, the minimum wage is now $16 for a lot of people. Right. It raised it over the last few years. And you could see what happened. Most of this was done in very good economic times, pre-COVID. The number of restaurants in Seattle actually increased during this period. There was a couple of academic studies that showed that what happened if you were a part-timer while this was happening, they tended to cut back your hours.
Right.
But because the wage was higher, you made the same amount of money. If you're a full-timer, on low ends of the wage scale, you made out pretty well because, you kept your hours and made more money. And overall, people benefited a little bit on the low end of the wage scale.
Right, but there are a lot of youths that aren't able to get that first job because, the employers decide they can't afford to hire them. Well, but getting back to the Biden fiscal plan, I mean, I think the $15 minimum wage is probably one of the things that's going to get carved out from it, and Congress will have to debate that separately. I don't think the Republicans will go along with including that in a.
Well, all they need to do is lose a few Democrats on that.
Right, yeah, they may. It's
small business constituents, yeah. But, this has to be the last rescue plan, I think. And maybe it is. Maybe by.
Well, if all goes according to plan with the vaccine, and particularly if we can get the vaccine out a little bit faster, then I think it should be the last rescue plan. I think we can put this pandemic behind us, and I'm optimistic that the economy will make a pretty quick and sharp recovery when we do. There's a lot of pent-up demand out there. Yes. The consumer is in pretty good shape overall. I mean, obviously, not every consumer is, because some people have been without a job for quite a few months. But the American consumer overall has saved some of those stimulus checks, and they've got money in the bank. They'll be ready to spend it on travel and restaurant meals and all the things they haven't been able to do for 9 or 10 months.
That's right. As soon as I get that shot in my arm and I'm feeling my immunity, and I feel that my neighbors are all immune, I'm going out to a restaurant and having a very nice meal. I don't know about you.
Oh, I'll join you.